Billy was 6 years old, a whirlwind of boundless energy and infectious laughter. His bright blue eyes sparkled with curiosity, and his gap-toothed grin could melt the iciest heart. Before starting first grade at Oakwood Elementary, Billy was a social butterfly, eager to join every game, raise his hand in class, and share his meticulously crafted Lego creations during show and tell. His parents, Sarah and Tom, often joked that Billy was powered by sunshine and pure, unadulterated joy, but something had shifted. Over the past few weeks, a shadow had fallen over Billy's sunny disposition. He started clinging to his mother at the school gate, his usual enthusiastic wave replaced with a hesitant, almost fearful glance that I in class. Mrs. Davison noticed he was increasingly quiet, his hand no longer shooting up to answer questions. He'd stopped volunteering for classroom tasks and seemed to shrink away from group activities, preferring to sit alone during recess, drawing quietly in his notebook. The vibrant, talkative boy they all knew was slowly fading, replaced by a withdrawn, anxious child. His usual sparkle dimmed with a worry that seemed far too heavy for his small shoulders. His parents noticed it too, the light in his eyes fading with each passing day. They were worried sick and desperate to find out what was troubling their little boy. The most alarming manifestation of Billy's anxiety was his absolute refusal to use the school bathroom. What started as an occasional reluctance had morphed into a complete avoidance. He would hold it for the entire school day. His small body tense and uncomfortable, Mrs. Davison noticed him fidgeting in his seat, his face flushed, his legs crossed tightly. The physical discomfort was clearly impacting his concentration, that he struggled to focus on lessons, his attention drifting. His usual spark of intelligence dimmed by the constant need to relieve himself. He'd pick at his lunch, barely eating, knowing that food would only exacerbate the problem. Sarah and Tom were equally concerned. At home, Billy was perfectly normal, using the bathroom without any hesitation. But the moment school was mentioned, his anxiety spiked. They tried everything: gentle coaxing, playful encouragement, even promising him his favorite superhero toy if he used the school bathroom just once. Nothing worked. He would simply shake his head, his eyes wide with a fear they couldn't comprehend, muttering, I just can't. The situation was becoming critical, impacting not only Billy's physical health, but also his emotional well-being and academic performance. They knew they needed to find a solution, and fast. Mrs. Davison, a seasoned educator with 20 years of experience, had seen her fair share of childhood anxieties. But Billy's case was particularly perplexing and concerning that she'd initially tried the usual methods: gentle encouragement and reassurance. It's okay, Billy, she'd say, her voice soft and soothing. The bathroom is just like the one at home. When that didn't work, she implemented a reward chart. Each successful bathroom visit would earn Billy a star, and a certain number of stars would lead to a small prize. Billy was initially enthusiastic, but the chart remained stubbornly empty. He simply couldn't bring himself to go in a further attempt to alleviate the pressure. Mrs. Davison discreetly allowed Billy extra bathroom breaks, opportunities to leave the classroom without explanation. However, Billy would simply wander the hallway, his face etched with anxiety, only to return minutes later, still needing to go, but unable to bring himself to enter the dreaded bathroom. Mrs. Davison watched, her heart aching, as Billy's discomfort grew each day. His inability to focus was impacting his learning, and his social withdrawal was becoming more pronounced. She knew she was running out of ideas and that Billy needed more help than she could provide on her own. She decided it was time to involve Nurse Emily, hoping her expertise and gentle approach could unlock the secret behind Billy's fear. Nurse Emily was a beacon of calm and reassurance in the bustling environment of Oakwood Elementary. With her warm smile, gentle demeanor, and a seemingly endless supply of colorful bandages, she had a knack for making even the most anxious child feel safe and cared for. She possessed an innate ability to connect with children, to listen without judgment, and to understand their fears and concerns, no matter how small they might seem. The children trusted her implicitly, confiding in her about scraped knees, playground squabbles, and tummy aches. She was more than just a nurse. She was a confidant, a friend, and a safe haven. It was this reputation, this special connection with children, that led Mrs. Davison to her office, a knot of worry tightening in her stomach. After a brief explanation of Billy's situation, Mrs. Davison watched as Nurse Emily listened intently, her brow furrowed in concern. When Mrs. Davison finished, Nurse Emily nodded thoughtfully. "I've noticed Billy seems a little subdued lately," she said, her voice gentle. "I'd be happy to talk to him, see if I can get him to open up. Sometimes, a fresh perspective is all it takes." Mrs. Davison felt a surge of hope. If anyone could unlock the mystery behind Billy's fear, it was Nurse Emily. The following day, Nurse Emily began her observation of Billy. She made a point of being present during recess, casually engaging with the children, including Billy, without directly addressing the bathroom issue. She noticed that as the morning progressed, Billy's playful demeanor waned. The carefree skip in his step disappeared, replaced by a hesitant shuffle. His laughter became less frequent, his smile strained. Back in the classroom, Nurse Emily observed him fidgeting, his legs bouncing nervously under his desk. She saw him clutch his stomach, his face occasionally contorting in a grimace of discomfort. It was clear he was holding it, and the effort was taking a toll. What struck Nurse Emily most was Billy's reaction whenever the word bathroom was even remotely mentioned. Whether it was Mrs. Davison reminding the class to wash their hands before lunch or another child asking to be excused, Billy would flinch, his eyes widening with a palpable fear to avert his gaze, as if trying to block out the very concept of the bathroom that it was more than just dislike. It was a deep-seated, almost primal fear that Nurse Emily knew she needed to understand. She resolved to proceed with caution and sensitivity, aware that pushing Billy too hard could be detrimental. Armed with her observations, Nurse Emily decided to approach Billy directly. She found him alone at a table during afternoon recess, quietly drawing in his notebook. Approaching gently, she sat beside him. "Hi, Billy," she said, her voice soft and friendly. "That's a beautiful drawing. What is it?" Billy looked up, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He mumbled a quick, "Thank you," and pointed to the drawing. A vibrant picture of a superhero flying through the sky. Nurse Emily praised his artistic talent, then casually steered the conversation towards school. "Mrs. Davison tells me you're a very bright student, Billy. Are you enjoying first grade?" He nodded hesitantly. Nurse Emily paused, choosing her words carefully. "I've also noticed you seem a little worried lately. Billy.is everything okay?" Billy's eyes darted around the playground. Avoiding her gaze, he fidgeted with his crayons. "Is there anything you want to talk about?" she prompted gently. Finally, Billy shook his head, his lower lip trembling slightly. I can't," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Can't what, Billy?" Nurse Emily asked patiently. He simply repeated, his voice choked with emotion. "I can't. I just can't." Nurse Emily suspected that bullying or a specific, frightening incident in the bathroom might be the cause of his distress. The mystery deepened. Based on Billy's reluctance to speak and the palpable fear in his eyes, Nurse Emily decided to investigate the possibility of bullying. She knew that bathroom incidents were often a common, yet hidden, form of harassment among young children. She began by discreetly interviewing other first-grade students, asking general questions about their experiences in the bathroom, whether they felt safe, and if they had witnessed any unkind behavior. She also spent time monitoring the bathroom during recess and lunch breaks, observing the interactions between students. She watched for any signs of teasing, exclusion, or physical aggression. She even enlisted the help of a few trusted older students to keep an eye out for anything suspicious. Despite her diligent efforts, Nurse Emily found nothing concrete. The other children reported no instances of bullying, and her observations revealed no obvious signs of harassment. The bathroom seemed, for all intents and purposes, like a normal, albeit sometimes messy, school bathroom. There were no menacing figures lurking in the shadows, no whispered threats, no visible signs of trauma. That it seemed she was on the wrong track. The mystery surrounding Billy's fear remained unsolved, and the pressure to find an answer was mounting. The inevitable happened during math class. Billy, unable to hold it any longer, had an accident. A dark stain spread across his pants, and a wave of silence washed over the classroom. The other children, initially curious, quickly averted their gazes, unsure how to react. Billy's face crumpled. Shame and embarrassment washed over him in a tidal wave. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he buried his face in his hands, his small body racked with sobs. Mrs. Davison quickly ushered him to the nurse's office, her heart breaking for the distraught little boy. Nurse Emily was waiting, prepared for this possibility. She gently helped Billy clean himself up, providing him with a change of clothes from the school's emergency supply. As he sat on the examination table, still trembling with shame, Nurse Emily knelt beside him, her eyes filled with compassion. "It's okay, Billy," she said softly, her hand resting gently on his arm. "Accidents happen, it's not your fault." Billy looked up at her, his eyes red and swollen. But everyone saw. He choked out, his voice thick with tears. "I know," Nurse Emily replied. "But what matters is that you're safe now. And I promise you, Billy, I promise we're going to figure out why you're so afraid to use the bathroom. And we're going to fix it together. I'm here to help you, every step of the way." Her words, filled with genuine empathy and a firm commitment to help, offered Billy a glimmer of hope amidst his despair. Seeing Billy's vulnerability, Nurse Emily knew she needed to build a deeper connection, to show him that she understood what it felt like to be afraid. She took a deep breath and decided to share a small, personal story from her own childhood. "You know, Billy," she began, her voice soft and confiding, "when I was about your age, I was terrified of thunderstorms. Every time I heard the thunder rumble, I would hide under my bed, convinced the sky was going to fall down." Billy looked at her, his tear-filled eyes widening with surprise. He hadn't expected the grown-up, confident Nurse Emily to have fears of her own. "It sounds silly now," she continued, "but at the time, it felt very real. My dad helped me by explaining what caused the thunder and lightning, and slowly, I started to feel less scared. It took time, but eventually, I learned to even enjoy watching the storms from the window." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Everyone has fears, Billy," she said gently. "The important thing is to not let them control you, and to find someone you trust to help you face them." By sharing her own vulnerability, Nurse Emily created a bond of empathy with Billy. He began to see her not just as a school nurse, but as someone who understood his fear, someone who had been there herself. A flicker of hope ignited in his eyes. Perhaps, just perhaps, he wasn't alone in his terror. Emboldened by Nurse Emily's story and the genuine warmth in her eyes, Billy finally felt safe enough to reveal the source of his terror. His voice was barely a whisper, his eyes still downcast, but the words were out. It's the monster," he mumbled. Nurse Emily frowned, unsure if she had heard correctly. "The monster? What monster, Billy?" He hesitated, then pointed towards the hallway. "In the bathroom," he said, his voice trembling. "The hand dryer." Understanding dawned on Nurse Emily. "The automatic hand dryer?" she asked gently. Billy nodded, his eyes wide with fear. "It roars," he explained, his voice rising slightly in panic. "It's so loud, and it blows air, and it tries to eat me." Nurse Emily realized that what seemed like a mundane object to an adult was, to Billy, a terrifying monster. The loud, sudden noise, the forceful blast of air, the unfamiliar sensation. It all combined to create a truly frightening experience for a young child. She finally understood. The mystery was solved. Now, the challenge was to help Billy overcome his fear. Nurse Emily reflected on Billy's explanation. What might seem like a minor inconvenience or a simple noise to an adult could be a truly terrifying experience for a young child, especially one with sensitive hearing or a predisposition to anxiety. The school had recently upgraded the bathroom fixtures, installing high-powered, energy-efficient hand dryers. They were undeniably effective at drying hands quickly, but they were also incredibly loud. She recalled the shrill, almost deafening roar of the hand dryer, the sudden and forceful blast of air that could make even an adult jump. A small child. That combination of noise and force could easily be perceived as aggressive, even threatening. She considered that Billy might have sensory processing sensitivities, making him more vulnerable to loud noises and overwhelming sensations. It wasn't just about the noise, though it was also about the lack of control. The automatic sensor triggered the dryer unexpectedly, catching Billy off guard. He couldn't anticipate the noise, couldn't prepare himself for the blast of AI, or it was a sudden, unpredictable assault on his senses, triggering a fight-or-flight response. Nurse Emily understood now that Billy's fear was not irrational. It was a perfectly logical reaction to a sensory experience that he perceived as genuinely threatening. The key was to validate his fear and find a way to make the bathroom a safe and comfortable space for him again. That to further validate her understanding and to gather evidence to support her proposed solution. Nurse Emily dedicated her lunch break and after-school hours to researching the potential impact of loud noises on children. She delved into academic journals, child development websites, and sensory processing disorder resources. What she discovered confirmed her suspicions. Numerous studies linked exposure to loud, sudden noises to increased anxiety, stress, and sensory overload in children. Some children were particularly sensitive to auditory stimuli, experiencing a heightened response to noises that others might barely notice. This sensitivity could manifest as anxiety, fear, and even panic attacks. She also found research highlighting the importance of creating sensory-friendly environments for children, particularly in schools. These environments minimized potentially overwhelming stimuli, such as loud noises, bright lights, and strong smells, to promote a sense of calm and well-being. The research clearly indicated that the hand dryer, far from being a harmless convenience, could be a significant source of distress for sensitive children like Billy. Armed with this evidence, Nurse Emily felt confident in her ability to advocate for a change. She knew she needed to convince the school administration that replacing the hand dryer was not just about accommodating Billy's individual fear, but about creating a more inclusive and supportive environment for all students. The next morning, Nurse Emily met with Mrs. Davison and Principal Thompson to present her findings and propose a solution. She carefully explained Billy's fear, detailing his sensory sensitivities and the research she had gathered on the impact of loud noises on children. She emphasized that the hand dryer, while seemingly innocuous, was a significant source of distress for Billy and potentially other students. Nurse Emily then laid out her plan. Her primary recommendation was to replace the overly powerful hand dryer with a quieter model. She had already researched several alternatives that were significantly less noisy, but still effective at drying hands. As a secondary option, she suggested installing paper towel dispensers in the bathrooms. This would provide students with a quieter, more predictable way to dry their hands and give them a sense of control over the situation. She stressed that both options were relatively inexpensive and easy to implement. This isn't just about accommodating Billy, she argued. It's about creating a more sensory-friendly and inclusive environment for all our students. It's about prioritizing their well-being and ensuring that school is a safe and comfortable place for everyone. Mrs. Davison nodded in agreement, her face etched with concern for Billy. Principal Thompson, however, remained skeptical, his brow furrowed in thought. Principal Thompson leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "While I appreciate your concern, Nurse Emily," he said, his voice measured, "I'm not sure this warrants such a drastic measure. We just installed those hand dryers last year. They were a significant investment." He cited budget constraints and the need to prioritize resources. "And frankly," he added, "I'm not convinced that replacing a perfectly functional hand dryer because one child is afraid of it is a reasonable use of school funds that we can't cater to every individual fear." He dismissed Billy's fear as unreasonable and suggested that perhaps Billy just needed to toughen up and get used to the noise. Nurse Emily felt a surge of frustration. She knew that Principal Thompson's resistance stemmed from a lack of understanding and a reluctance to spend money on what he perceived as a trivial issue. "With all due respect, Principal Thompson," Nurse Emily countered, her voice firm but respectful. "This isn't about catering to an unreasonable fear. This is about creating a safe and supportive learning environment for all our students. Billy's fear is very real, and the research clearly shows that loud noises can have a negative impact on children's well-being and academic performance. That we have a responsibility to address this issue and ensure that all our students feel comfortable and safe at school." She stood her ground, determined to advocate for Billy's well-being, even if it meant challenging the principal's authority. Flashback, 1 year prior. The school gymnasium was abuzz with activity as the facilities crew installed the new, state-of-the-art hand dryers in the bathrooms. Mr. Henderson, the head of maintenance, surveyed the scene with satisfaction. "These babies are going to save us a fortune on paper towels," he declared to Mrs. Peterson, the school's business manager, who was hovering nearby, clipboard in hand. The cost analysis was very compelling, Mrs. Peterson agreed, ticking off a line item on her list. Long-term, these energy-efficient models will significantly reduce our operating expenses. The conversation revolved entirely around cost savings, energy efficiency, and ease of maintenance. N01 mentioned the potential impact of the noise levels on young children. N01 considered the sensory experience of a 6-year-old stepping into the bathroom and being confronted by a sudden, deafening roar. The focus was solely on the bottom line. The powerful hand dryers were installed with little regard for the potential negative consequences, a decision made with good intentions but a lack of foresight. The hum of the drill and the whir of the new machines drowned out any potential concerns about noise levels and sensory sensitivities. The installation was completed, the cost savings were projected, and the bathrooms were deemed modernized. The stage was set for Billy's silent terror to begin. Determined to change Principal Thompson's mind, Nurse Emily arranged a demonstration. She borrowed a decibel meter from the science department and invited the principal to meet her in the first-grade bathroom. Mrs. Davison, equally invested in finding a solution for Billy, joined them. As Principal Thompson stood skeptically near the sink, Nurse Emily activated the hand dryer. The bathroom was filled with an ear-splitting roar. The decibel meter registered a reading well above the recommended noise level for children, confirming Nurse Emily's concerns. "As you can see, Principal Thompson," Nurse Emily said, her voice slightly raised to be heard over the din, "this hand dryer produces a noise level that is potentially harmful to young children's hearing and can trigger anxiety and sensory overload." She showed him the reading on the decibel meter, highlighting the numbers that exceeded the recommended threshold, and Mrs. Davison added, "Imagine being 6 years old and experiencing this level of noise every time you need to wash your hands. That it's no wonder Billy is terrified." Principal Thompson's expression shifted from skepticism to concern. He winced at the noise level, finally experiencing firsthand the sensory assault that Billy had been enduring. The demonstration, coupled with the scientific evidence, had finally broken through his resistance. Shaken by the demonstration and armed with the irrefutable evidence of the decibel meter, Principal Thompson finally conceded. All right," he said, holding up his hands in a gesture of surrender. "I see your point. That hand dryer is far too loud for these young children." He paused, considering the budget implications. "Okay, I'll approve the replacement. We'll find a quieter model, something that meets the recommended noise levels. And," he added, glancing at Mrs. Davison, "we'll install paper towel dispensers in all the bathrooms as an alternative." Nurse Emily and Mrs. Davison exchanged relieved smiles. Their persistence had paid off. Principal Thompson's change of heart was a significant victory, not just for Billy, but for all the students at Oakwood Elementary. Principal Thompson, now fully on board, tasked Mr. Henderson with researching quieter hand dryer models and ordering the necessary paper towel dispensers. He also promised to review the school's purchasing policies to ensure that noise levels and sensory sensitivities were taken into consideration when selecting future equipment. The wheels were finally in motion to create a more sensory-friendly and inclusive environment for the students. While waiting for the new hand dryer and paper towel dispensers to arrive, Nurse Emily began working with Billy to desensitize him to the bathroom environment. She understood that simply removing the hand dryer wouldn't erase his fear overnight. It would take time and patience to rebuild his confidence. During recess, when the bathroom was empty and quiet, Nurse Emily would invite Billy to join her for a special mission. They would walk to the bathroom together, hand in hand, and spend a few minutes inside. First, Billy was hesitant, his body tense with anxiety. Nurse Emily would encourage him to focus on his breathing, teaching him simple relaxation techniques she had learned in a mindfulness workshop. "Let's take deep breaths, Billy," she would say, her voice calm and soothing. "In through your nose and out through your mouth, like you're smelling a flower and blowing out a candle." They would explore the bathroom together, pointing out familiar objects and talking about the sounds and smells. Nurse Emily would reassure him that the bathroom was a safe place and that she was there to protect him. Gradually, Billy's anxiety began to subside. He started to relax, his grip on Nurse Emily's hand loosening that he even began to smile, his fear slowly replaced by a sense of accomplishment. The day the new hand dryer was installed was a momentous occasion. Mr. Henderson had chosen a model that was not only significantly quieter, but also had a gentler airflow. Paper towel dispensers were now mounted next to every sink, offering a readily available alternative. Nurse Emily approached Billy with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "Ready for a special mission, Billy?" she asked, her voice encouraging that he nodded hesitantly, his eyes fixed on the bathroom door. Hand in hand, they entered the bathroom. Billy's grip tightened on Nurse Emily's hand, but he didn't pull away. They walked to the sink, and Nurse Emily pointed to the new hand dryer. "See, Billy, it's different now. It's much quieter." With Billy watching closely, Nurse Emily activated the new hand dryer. The sound was a gentle hum, a far cry from the deafening roar of the old machine. Billy flinched slightly, but his eyes didn't widen with terror. He was still apprehensive, but noticeably less fearful. Nurse Emily smiled reassuringly. "It's okay, Billy, it's just a little air." She then demonstrated the paper towel dispenser, showing him how to pull out a towel and dry his hands quietly and easily. Billy watched intently, his curiosity piqued. The monster was gone, replaced by something far less threatening. The next day, Billy approached Nurse Emily with a newfound confidence. "I need to use the bathroom," he announced, his voice clear and steady. Nurse Emily's heart swelled with pride. This was the moment they had been working towards. She walked with him to the bathroom, offering a silent gesture of support. Billy hesitated at the door, took a deep breath, and entered. Nurse Emily waited patiently outside, listening intently. She heard the sound of the toilet flushing, then the water running in the sink. A moment later, Billy emerged from the bathroom, his face beaming. He had done it. He had successfully used the bathroom, and he had even used the new hand dryer. "It wasn't scary at all," he exclaimed, his eyes shining with triumph. "It was just a little air, like you said." Nurse Emily wrapped him in a hug. "I'm so proud of you, Billy," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You were so brave. You faced your fear and you conquered it." Billy grinned, basking in the praise. He had overcome his terror, and he knew he could do anything he set his mind to. It was a huge victory, a testament to his courage and Nurse Emily's unwavering support. The transformation in Billy was remarkable. The shadow that had darkened his bright eyes lifted, replaced by the familiar sparkle of curiosity and joy. He returned to his former happy self. Once again a whirlwind of energy and enthusiasm. He started raising his hand in class, eager to answer questions and participate in discussions. He rejoined his friends on the playground, laughing and playing with abandon. He even volunteered to be the line leader, a task he had previously avoided. Mrs. Davison watched with a grateful heart as Billy blossomed once more. His concentration improved, his grades soared, and his social skills flourished. He was no longer the withdrawn, anxious child who had struggled to make it through the day. He was Billy again, the bright, happy, and confident first grader they all knew and loved. Bathroom breaks were no longer a source of dread. Billy used the bathroom without hesitation, sometimes opting for the quieter hand dryer, sometimes choosing the paper towels. He had regained control over his fear, and he knew he could handle whatever challenges came his way. The incident with the hand dryer had been a difficult chapter in his young life, but it had also taught him valuable lessons about courage, resilience, and the importance of seeking help when needed. The positive impact of the hand dryer incident extended beyond Billy. Inspired by Nurse Emily's advocacy and Principal Thompson's newfound awareness, the school board decided to review the incident and implement new policies to prevent similar situations in the future. They convened a special meeting to discuss the importance of creating sensory-friendly environments for children and the potential impact of loud noises on their well-being. Nurse Emily was invited to present her research and share her experience with Billy. The school board members were deeply moved by Billy's story and impressed by Nurse Emily's dedication. They unanimously approved a new policy requiring that noise levels be carefully considered when installing new equipment in children's areas, such as classrooms, bathrooms, and playgrounds. The policy mandated that all new equipment be evaluated for its potential impact on children's hearing and sensory sensitivities. It also required that alternative options be explored whenever possible to minimize exposure to loud noises and other potentially overwhelming stimuli. The policy was a significant step forward in creating a more inclusive and supportive environment for all students at Oakwood Elementary, ensuring that their well-being was prioritized in all decision-making processes. Nurse Emily's dedication and unwavering advocacy for Billy did not go unnoticed. At the next school assembly, Principal Thompson publicly recognized her for her compassion and commitment to the students' well-being. That he praised her for her keen observation skills, her gentle approach, and her tireless efforts to uncover the root cause of Billy's fear. He highlighted her research, her advocacy for a sensory-friendly environment, and her unwavering support for Billy throughout the entire process. Nurse Emily, Principal Thompson announced, his voice filled with gratitude. Your compassion and dedication to our students are an inspiration to us all. You have gone above and beyond your. Final scene. Weeks later, Nurse Emily was tidying up her office when Billy skipped in, his eyes bright with excitement. He clutched a piece of paper in his hand. Nurse Emily, I drew you a picture, he announced proudly. He presented her with the drawing that it was a colorful depiction of Nurse Emily, standing tall and strong, with a bright yellow cape flowing behind her. She was surrounded by happy children, all smiling and waving. Above her head, Billy had carefully printed the words, Nurse Emily, my hero. In the corner of the drawing, Billy had added a small detail, a hand dryer, but this one had a friendly face and was making a gentle whoosh sound. Beneath it, he had written, It's not scary anymore. Nurse Emily's eyes welled up with tears. Oh, Billy, she said, her voice choked with emotion. This is the most beautiful picture I've ever seen. She knew that Billy's drawing was more than just a thank you note. It was a powerful reminder of the importance of listening to children's fears, of validating their experiences, and of providing them with the support and understanding they need to overcome their challenges. It was a testament to the power of compassion and the transformative impact of a single act of kindness. The end.